Today in the Muletown Speed Shop, we build the hot rod truck GM should have built when we put this LS motor into that S10 and we hit the dyno.
This is Brian from Muletown Speed, and this is our new project. This is a 99 S10, 4-cylinder automatic, standard cab short box 2-wheel drive that had a seized motor in it and was left for dead on the property that we bought a couple years ago. So it wasn't really free, but yeah, it was basically free. What I did was I went on Craigslist, I found a 4-cylinder off of a local guy here. I put that in, and that motor was also hurt. I think cylinder number 3 was junk. So it barely runs, but it's a perfect candidate for a V8 swap. I should have done that to begin with, and spending all the time to put another 4-cylinder in it. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. This is gonna be a street truck that is gonna be a budget build. Anybody can do in their own shop. 4.8 4L80 transmission. For whatever reason, 4L80s are cheaper here in my area in southern Middle Tennessee than a 4L60 is, for whatever reason. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you most of the steps in the process and kind of the issues that I ran into, how I fixed them or not fixed them, and all the way from start to finish. And we'll be visiting Muletown Mobile Dyno at the end, probably 2 episodes. At the end of the second episode, we'll go to the dyno and see what it actually puts out. So nothing crazy, race, fancy, anything. This is going to be reusing head bolts and slapping a cam in it with springs and fixing a broken lifter. And so really the only really expensive thing that I'm going to be buying for this is the CPW or current performance wiring harness. Basically just to save a bunch of time for this project, because what I'm doing is I'm going to keep track of every dollar and every hour spent on this to basically show everybody that it doesn't take a lot of time. And even for me, I'm really busy. I have a day job. This is you'll see I'm definitely not a pro. So this is just something I do on the side for fun, and it's going to be a fun street truck you can drive around and feed on and have a lot of fun with for less than $4 grand. So that's the goal.
For how long? I don't care. So I started tearing stuff apart. It's all the really easy stuff. Nobody really cares if you're getting into an LS swap. This stuff is disconnecting hoses and fuel lines and transmission lines, and I pulled the radiator out and all that kind of stuff to yank this 4-cylinder out. So nothing impressive, but and I got my refreshments, so I should be good here for a little bit. Is this your first time? No, it's not. That's the sad part. Good grave. I am not fast. Oh, just made another big mess.
The engine going in this S10 is a 4.8 liter Gen 3 LS engine out of, say, a 2001 to 2003 half-ton pickup. The guy I got it from said it had a lifter tick, so he pulled it out and put a 6 liter in its place. So I scored this for next to nothing. And the guy was right. That lifter was trashed, so that meant we had to pull the head off, replace the lifter, throw in a new gasket, reuse those old head bolts, torque it down, and we're ready to go. So now we're to the fun part, which is installing our JEGs brand new camshaft. It's a 228, 230, 575 lift on both intake and exhaust, and we complemented that with a new set of Pac 1218 valve springs.
Boom. See the difference here. There's a 1218. That's a stock truck spring. This cylinder head is off of that 4.8 because it had, look at that guy, carnage going on here. Sweet muscle car oil pan deal and some nice new mounts. Brand new GM oil pan. Comes with a pickup, all the hardware, gasket, all that stuff, and it was like $175 or something. I'm going to attempt to get this broken bolt out of the exhaust flangey dealy doodle. I saw this on YouTube once, so it has to work. I'm going to weld a booger and then grab onto the booger and twist. See if this works. Ah! Move a little bit. Right there. You see how that bolt's starting to come out? I welded my doodle right onto the end of the bolt and made it kind of like a dingle deck off to the side so I can grab it and spin it. It took a few tries to actually get a good bead on there where it would stick to that bolt, but it's coming out now. So this is the second one on this side, I got one more on the other side, and we'll be good to go. So there's the hole. So I didn't know this, but at the junkyard, a lot of times guys pulling these out will punch a hole straight up through the oil pan, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they did. So I don't know why I didn't fix this before, but I didn't. I did replace that filter, but I'm going to weld this up. Look at this. Ah, look at that. Gross. Oh no. there we go. Oh yeah. Transmission cooler lines are here and here. Now these are like the quick connect deals. Kind of a pain in the butt. So what I got are some adapter fittings to go into the transmission on this side and that side, and then it gives you a -6 JIC or a -6 AN, same on the other side to connect your -6 line. That one is the long one. Long one goes in the back. Dunked them in transmission fluid just to lube them up. Size. It's this size. I got the right wrench. A lot of stuff to do yet on my S10 before the motor goes back into it, but before I get into any of that, I'm going to the junkyard because it's Saturday and they're open. It's not a big junkyard, but there's a few things that I need. Alright, I'm back from the junkyard. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of going to the junkyard, but it was a good turnout. So I went to Stoney's in Columbia, Tennessee. That's what I got. Scored big time. So I got my driver's side bracket as AC and power steering, and then got it with a power steering pump. This is a AC bracket off of a early 90s Chevy pickup, 411 PCM. So drive-by cable PCM that'll have the IAC drivers in it for drive-by cable, and then of course you can always use a set of ignition coils, map sensor. You can always use one of those. We got the truck back up on the lift. I got it all kind of pressure washed off a little bit here this morning to kind of get some of the goop off. It looks pretty good. And what I'm going to do now is box in my cross member here that I notched and get it painted up, and then we can put the engine trans back in. So what I'm going to do here is take a chunk of cardboard and trace out what I need for the bits to weld in. Then I'm going to trace it out onto some sheet steel that I got from a local scrapyard, plasma cut that out, and then start welding it up. Okay. Alright, we're back. I had to go get welding gas. Okay. Boom. Alright. Results. Got a little E-coat on there. Keep it looking nice. Yeah, should work good. Can start slamming this thing back together. finally got enough clearance with my transcooler line to get the transmission all the way up in the tunnel so I can get the stock 4-cylinder cross member in. So you can see the factory 4L80 mount that just goes through a hole here that I put in the cross member, and the stock cross member had a doodle right here that it bolted to. Well, I cut that off and now it's there. You don't need to pay $300 or whatever for a custom cross member that's still probably not gonna fit anyway. Make your own. All right, check this out. So 4L80 transmission. All of this, the shifter and the shifter bracket is all factory S10 4-cylinder 4L60 automatic transmission stuff. So I literally unbolted this from the truck, set it off to the side, put the transmission in, and boom, this bolts right back up. The bracket in the 4L60 has 2 holes, and this one only uses the one because the other one doesn't quite reach. But it works, it fits, it's awesome. So these are the Patriot brand headers. They are ceramic coated, 1 5/8", and I would recommend these just because they're shorty, they're really easy to get in and out. My goodness, it takes a lot of the hassle out of this. Yeah, you give up some horsepower over long tubes, but if you're really worried about every last horsepower, then go right ahead and get the long tubes and fight with them, that's fine. Let me also show you what I did on the ears of the control arms. You see I buzzed that out with my plasma. Use a grinder or whatever else there too, but I had to clearance those for these headers. Plasma there, bloop. Plasma there. We're going to see if the headers fit. You can see that way back in here. Whoa, hang on. There's maybe a 1/4 inch of clearance between the header and the control arm, but whatever. It's a poly engine mount. It's not going to move that much. I'm not worried about it. If it hits, it'll just self-clearance itself. I had to shim up the motor mounts in order to get the power steering pump and bracket and everything to fit on here without hitting the box. And then I did the same thing on this side. Took a little while. I put body shims in there just for now, just to make sure it was up high enough. But it looks like it is. I'm really close to the adjuster here, but it should work. As long as I can get a belt on, I'll be happy. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that action back on, and we'll move on to the next thing. Normally with these motors, the AC compressor is right down in here, but because this S10 is so much smaller, it interferes with the frame rail. So what a lot of people do is notch the frame rail in here and then box it in order to get the factory, the big sand-in or whatever compressor in there. I don't want to do that. I want a simpler option, and I want something cheap. I don't want to buy aftermarket brackets. So what I'm going to do is I found a write-up on MalibuRacing.com, and there's a really good write-up there where they use a 90 to 95 TBI truck AC bracket. They modify it and they use it on these LS engines, and it seems to work pretty well. This is the bracket you want to get. It costs next to nothing from the junkyard. And what you do is you take this ear here and you just basically cut that off. Here it is. Still got to clean that junk up, but I kind of just hacked it off just to get out of the way to make sure it's going to work. Alright. So there's our main attachment point for this bracket. The other thing we're going to do is come off of this guy here and go down from here whoop, down to there, and have a standoff there to set the distance and to also brace it. In order to do that, I'm going to have to tilt this guy more towards the front of the car. So I'm going to heat up around here with a torch, move that guy, and then it'll be out of the way. So then I can get this clocked down a little bit further so it'll fit under the hood. bracket and then a spacer that I found. So I'm gonna do this guy. Go right there. I'm gonna tack weld that on, take it off, weld it back up, paint it, throw it back on, tighten it up. Boom, look at that. Done. Next project. Super grody. Listen. I'm doing it. Attach the 4-cylinder throttle cable bracket to one of the fins, one of the doodles on the intake. I'm just going to drill a hole, screw it in, and then I'll be able to connect one doodle to the other doodle. As they say, check once and measure. Alright, here's my throttle cable arrangement. And the firewall, that's where the factory one ended because that's about where the throttle body was. In the throttle body, I have a temporary connector here to another cable that goes through a 90-degree sleeve to the factory big truck bracket down to the throttle body here. So that's how that guy works. This is a Walbro 450 in-tank fuel pump. Look at that. So this is definitely overkill for what we're trying to do initially here with the 4.8 naturally aspirated with a cam. This is definitely going to be more than we need, but it gives us room to upgrade in the future if we wanted to do a turbo or whatever. This should be good for lots and lots of horsepower. So all of the bed to frame bolts. There's 4 on each side. They're really easy to get to. It's a 15mm socket. I undid the feeler neck deal to the body of the, or I guess the bed. There's 2 screws and then a little plastic pop rivety deal that just kind of sits down in there for now. That's fine. Now we have enough room to get under here to our fuel pump. There we go. Okay. Factory basket with the 450 stuffed in there. This is 3/8 fuel injection hose here. The top hose clamps. And my Deutsch plug here for electrical. Everything else is as it was. Got the hat kind of jammed back together here. Everything looks like it's should be operational. I'm gonna drop her back in. Yes. That's smart. There we go. I think I spent like $60 on everything I needed for the exhaust. Show you what I did. This is just the one side. This is the driver's side. So this extension deal came with the headers, and I got an O2 sensor. That's the old O2 sensor that I used to weld in a bung for my wideband that I don't have yet. And then a chunk of straight. Here's a garbage muffler, and then a 90, just like that. The other side is exactly the same. It's already in the car, but nice, cheap, easy, effective. That'll work. Went and got an 1 3/8 freeze plug to fill the hole. You can see right here. Woo, woo, woo. That's where the UGR was. Yeah, so this guy should
this be able to go right in there. Smack it in. Boom, done. All right, today is a good day in the Muletown Speed Shop because, A, Ulysses S. Grunt has graced us with his presence. Shop pig.
Yuli, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Current Performance sent a goodie box. This is their custom fit S10 harness for Ella. Here, have a tomato. Nom, 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 nom. So here's the deal. You call them, you give them the specs on what you're doing, and they make you a custom harness exactly how you want it. So, all right, so turns out I'm a complete idiot. Probably not surprised. So, I was wondering why Current Performance asked me 3 different times what injectors I was using. I kept telling them, I've got EV1s, EV1s, EV1s. Factory truck stuff. The Gen 3 factory trucks apparently do not have EV1s. I thought they were either 1s or 6s. And Bonehead, that's a Delphi injector. I paid a lot of money to have this really nice harness made up, and I told them the wrong information. So I'm a bonehead, but I do have this mess. These are plugs for a Delphi injector, and this is off of an old crusty harness that I had. It's a factory harness laying around, so I'm going to use these. I'm going to splice into this nice fancy harness and do some soldering. Awesome. Giant mess today getting all of the odds and ends and stuff done on the S10 here. Trying to get ready to turn the key for the first time. I have not heard this thing run yet, so this will be awesome. Cross your fingers, we're gonna give it a shot. Started. I don't want to run it too long because I don't have any water in it. Awesome. The truth is, just getting this engine and trans in the truck and getting it running is a win for me. Now, I'm a novice, and to say that I've only got $3,800 and about 60 hours worth of work into this thing just to get it to this point is definitely a win. In reality, there's just way too much content here to show you in one episode, so that's why I had to split it up into 2. We will eventually get this out of the shop and on the road where we can do some street tuning. Then we're going to Muletown Mobile Dyno where we can get this thing really dialed in so we can do some awesome smoky burnouts. And on the next episode of Muletown Speed, you'll probably see more pig too.